We have the freedom to protest in Australia, and I think that's quite important.
Absolutely stupid. I've had both my shots. I'm 83. I'm happy. They don't realise how lucky they are to live in our wonderful country. And I'm sorry to see that.
Hello, kabayan. Nag-aabang ka ba ng bakuna mula sa gobyerno? Punta tayo sa Australia. Ito mga nagragali na ito ay nagpo-protesta sila na ayaw magpabakuna. Libre naman ang bakuna, ngunit ayaw nila kasi hindi sila naniniwala sa bakuna. Sabi nila ang bakuna ay scam daw, scamdemic. Sila ay nag-aaklas laban sa gobyerno. Gusto nilang ipatigil ang magaganap na pambansang bakuna sa bansang Australia. Noong isang araw, sila ay nagtipon-tipon para iparating sa buong mundo o sa bansa nila na ayaw nilang magpabakuna. Panoorin natin ang mga sumusunod na pangyayari habang sila ay nagpo-protesta. Hindi nito alam, sa bansang Australia, may karapatan silang magprotesta. Karapatan ng bawat mamamayan ng Australia ang magprotesta. Ito ay isa sa kanilang mga karapatan at kalayaan. Dinidepensahan lang naman ng mga pulis ang isa't isa para hindi magkaroon ng kaguluhan. Samahan niyo ako, panoorin natin at alamin ang kanilang mga hinaing laban sa mga protesta nila. Lahat ng nagpro-protestang ito ay hindi sang-ayon sa bakunang libreng ibinibigay ng gobyerno. Panoorin natin ang mga nagpro-protesta sa iba't ibang lugar sa bansang Australia. Meron sa Brisbane, meron sa Sydney, meron sa Melbourne. Kung hindi nyo alam, sa bansang Australia ang napakaganda ng kanilang medical system na tinatawag. Lahat ng klase ng medical assistance ay libre sa Australia. Pag pumunta ka sa doktor, nagpakonsulta ka, libre po yan. Pag nagpunta ka sa ospital, nagpakonsulta ka, nagpa-doktor ka, nagpagamot ka, nagpa-opera o kahit ano pa man, wala kang babayaran kahit isang singkong buling. Ganyan kaganda ang medical health assistance ng Australia para sa lahat ng mga Australian citizen. Kaya ang mga tao, kung makapag-welga or makapag-protesta ay wagas dahil alam nila na meron namang gagamot sa kanila, meron namang ospital na naghihintay sa kanila. Ang publikong ospital na ito ay parang ospital sa atin sa Pilipinas gaya ng St. Luke's, Makati Medical Center, Cardinal Santos, at lahat ng mga bigating ospital sa Pilipinas. Ngunit sa Australia, lahat po yan ay libre, walang babayaran ang lahat ng mamamayan ng Australia. At alam nila nagagaling sila. At wala rin naman silang gagastusin pag gumaling sila or kahit ano pa man ang mangyari. Dahil lahat po yan ay libre mula sa gobyerno ng Australia. Panoorin natin ang lahat ng kaganapan tungkol sa protestang nangyayari sa bansang Australia.
every single one of you. You should be on our side. It's been 18 months, enough is enough. Stop taking orders from this tyrannical government because it's not COVID. It's all pushing
Pretty disgusting language we heard there, but they've been moved on and police are still out in full force. There's about hundreds of officers here on the street. So how this all came is stationed around Melbourne's CBD, saying that they were taking a zero tolerance approach this time round, shutting down public transport to deter anyone entering into the city. That's because the last protest that occurred several weeks ago, which descended on the steps of Parliament, turned pretty violent, where many ended up in hospital, and there were 200 arrests made. So they weren't taking any chances this time around. So how it all unfolded today. So originally it was scheduled for the CBD, but there was talks on these encrypted messaging apps of the protest potentially being diverted here to Richmond. Now, we weren't sure if this was a diversion tactic, which these protesters tend to do to deter police resources, but it all happened at midday. Things unfolded. It really erupted, with thousands descending here on the streets of Richmond in an intense standoff with police officers, where bottles were thrown and words were shouted out, and in particular peace and love, which is what this group tends to do. Richmond, where we saw another group come back, including construction workers, following yesterday's intense protest as well. They're obviously in complete disagreement with the government's decision then in some of those recent occurrences in that industry. So they were also taking to the streets today. We saw some people tackled to the ground. Multiple arrests were made here. Things did turn violent in the end, and we've got some of those scenes earlier today. Have a look.
Roads for their meal breaks.
We built this joint, yeah?
These boys have put their heart, sweat, balls and everything into it, right? And this is what we cop? Nah, it's not happening.
Police monitored their movements as tradies across Melbourne spent their morning and lunch breaks blocking cars, trucks and trams, complete with tables, chairs and even a barbecue. Furious at the government for targeting them.
Disrespected, let down, and I think the Australian way is out the door. It's gone. I'm eating cold bloody food. You, Dan Andrews, thank you very much. Dan Andrews is a dog.
But the government says construction is one of the most dangerous places for the spread of the virus, mixing in tea rooms without masks in enclosed spaces.
I think we already...
Critics of today's action say that with so many industries shut down completely for so long, tradies complaining about closed tea rooms is thoughtless and arrogant.
Bunch of selfish, excuse my language, assholes. I think they are entitled to actually sit down in a safe manner and actually have a cup of tea and a sandwich, and if that's an offence, then you know what, I suppose we're all criminals then. It's about time we stand up.
And they did, to walk from their worksite on Lonsdale Street to the King Street intersection, again blocking traffic.
They want to ban the lunchrooms, we have lunch in the middle of the street.
13% of our active cases are in construction. Today, overall, another 510 cases. More than 70% of eligible Victorians now with their first dose. It's less than a week before construction workers need to have the first jab if they want to stay on the job. But for many today, their priority was taking a stand against the tea room ban.
I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous, but you know, what can you do?
We have the freedom to protest in Australia, and I think that's quite important.
Construction workers say this isn't just a protest happening to
Chaos in Brisbane's Botanic Gardens. Police trying to arrest a man are surrounded, swarmed by protesters. He is eventually taken away along with another man, handcuffed and heading straight to the watch house. The anger was short-lived, the rally continuing, then a march through the city from State Parliament down George Street, then onto Queen Street, the mall overrun with Saturday shoppers ducking for cover. Even in a city with no lockdowns and very few restrictions, protesters still say their freedoms are being taken away.
I don't believe in the vaccine. I don't think it should be mandated, and I think if you wanted to take a vaccine, you should feel safe to take it.
Furious over mandatory jabs, vaccine passports, and the media.
Get your cameras off my face.
And if you're growing as an individual,
Off my face. Run,
In the West, protests in Perth too. A bride was caught up in the middle of it. Her wedding day almost derailed.
Absolutely stupid. I've had both my shots. I'm 83. I'm happy. They don't realise how lucky they are to live in our wonderful country. And I'm sorry to see that.
And in Adelaide, a much smaller rally, but still just as disruptive. One protester took aim at several members of the force, including a female officer who was blindsided by the attack. Other officers were trampled as the mob charged through their defences.
We will not comply! We will not comply! We will not comply! We will not comply!
It comes as hundreds of protesters, most not wearing masks, flocked to Richmond in Melbourne's inner east.
Join us! We're just people too!
Intent on protesting Victoria's lockdowns. After parading down Bridge Road, much to the disdain of locals, the rally moved to residential streets, where scenes turned ugly. Authorities forced to use capsicum spray after being confronted by demonstrators. As residents watched on, police formed barricades to keep the illegal gathering under control. With help from the mounted police and air wing units, authorities were able to disperse the mob. The rally moved to Melbourne's inner east after measures to keep protesters out of the city were introduced. Travel in and out of the city ground to a halt. Trains didn't run, and only essential workers were allowed into the CBD. Today's protest comes less than a month after violent scenes erupted in Melbourne's CBD. The city has been in lockdown for over 6 weeks.